all is said.
All right. Okay.
What does your picture say? When all is said and done, what?
More is said than done.
Now there's a way to.
You never heard that phrase?
Not for a long time.
You know, it's the classic sales room messages, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh dear. How are you, Gary? Are you okay?
Yep, absolutely good. Fantastic. Decided to put a classic type of shirt on for you and the viewers this week, as it was a little bit bland the last time, wasn't it?
I thought I'd spice things up a bit as well and add some dots.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, polka dots.
Feeling dotty today.
Is that right?
Yeah, feeling very dotty.
Is that the phrase for the week? Feeling dotty today?
Yeah, if it lasts for Friday, it'll be in the word of the week.
Yeah, actually, you could do that because it's a bit like, you know, like join the dots together, like dot to dot, the pictures. And, you know, the most complicated ones, you didn't have a clue, did you, as a kid? I mean, the easy ones, you can see it straight away.
You definitely needed the numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because you can have all the dots on the actual screen, but without the actual direction and the numbers, the picture doesn't become apparent.
No. Well, maybe I should get my my daughter to start doodling on my dress later and see what we end up with.
Or number it first, if I were you, Wendy.
Yes.
Just in case.
Maybe just give some direction, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So can you believe this is our 6th session together doing Waze?
No, not really. No, it seems to fly by, doesn't it? Every time. Every time. And it reminds me of that phrase, though, tempus fugit, you know, time waits for no one. And that was also a classic sales manager's phrase that was used on me many years ago. In fact, when the guy first said it, I thought, what? You know, considering I was in a sales office in Leicester, that type of language was the last thing I'd ever expect. But it made sense, and it makes sense now. The time's moving by at a pace, and, you know, what are we doing to maximise as much as we can?
Well, in Leicester at the moment, not much.
No, I do feel for my friends and colleagues over there. I mean, there's an amazing hairdresser called Barry Stephen, and he's got 5 salons. And so you can imagine, like, the staff all ready to go. His clients were ready to go. And then at the last hurdle, he had to shut it down, you know, literally for another couple of weeks.
I think, wasn't he on the news? Did I see him on the news being interviewed?
There's a good chance he would be. He's got a very good PR consultant that gets him here, there, and everywhere. So yeah, I would not be surprised if Barry was not on the news. Put it like that.
I need to find a good hairdresser like Barry. I'm starting to curtains.
Yeah. Listen, I have to thank him for giving me a head start many years ago as Gary Outrageous. He was quite well known within the hairdressing industry at the time. He was just driving and growing his business. And in fact, we met each other many, many years ago when he was a mobile hairdresser. Not the most reliable on his time at the time, but when I last met up with him, when he got his businesses going, it turned everything around. But he did a lot of work for Salon 365. And so he introduced me to the people and said, look, I think that Gary might be quite good for your seminars and conferences. And it's interesting, just that one person just giving you that little sort of help, that little sort of nudge, that little, I don't know, step up.
Yeah.
And it made a big difference. And I love working with hairdressers. Yeah, just majority of them are very positive. They've got a lot of energy.
They've got so much chat. It's, you know, they are like therapists in themselves. You know, it's the whole experience.
Absolutely.
It's not about necessarily what you look like when you walk out, is it? It's how they make you feel on the day.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yet, interestingly, one of Barry's strategies was to make sure they didn't just idly chat with clients. Everything was worked out specifically and strategically to make sure that if you went in to have your hair done, that you would have an amazing experience, that your hairstyle would be what you expected, and then you'd be happy to refer your friends and buy more of his goods from him. And he knew if he got that right from the get-go, not a problem at all. And I've seen him grow and grow and grow. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, I think going back to what you said about in the beginning is timekeeping.
Yeah.
it's also an interesting point, isn't it, that you can be a fantastic hairstylist and give that experience in that moment, but what you don't factor in always are the other factors, like traveling from client to client, what the
Correct.
traffic's going to be like, how long it may take, the fact that it may take you a little longer because you can't cut the conversation short when, even though you're finished and you're wrapped up, packed up, you've got to still take the payment, book them in next time, and so there's other factors, aren't there, that that would affect the next customer's experience.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And I think that because 365 is part of the Paul Mitchell Air Group, what he learned, and I'll use my example just for a moment, was systems, get the system in place. It's when he got his first salon, which was an ex-butcher's shop, which is quite interesting, because I think the first time I got back to him and says, "You're going to butcher my hair then, Barry?" And if he's listening to this and watching it, because he could do it, you know that I'm saying it with love, Barry, all right? Because he's absolutely spot on now, and he'll understand that. Interesting, something that we said about time, and there's a quote that comes to mind, and it's what lies behind us and what lies ahead of us pales into insignificance to what lies within us. And I think it was Emerson that said that, and I think that's so true, because I think most of us have got everything we actually need to get ourselves in our life to where we want to be. It's already there inside. It's just about drawing it out. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I had an interesting conversation last week with a guy who was doing leadership coaching mentor program.
Right.
And had asked me for my insight as a leader, and I was like, I don't know what I could say to add any value, but sure, because I'm intrigued what you would ask other people. Yeah.
Yes.
And through the process, it was quite interesting, because I've had a team of people before and found it really, really difficult. And even though I need some help right now, I couldn't think of anybody that I could trust enough to give me back the time that I needed.
Okay.
But through that process, I did stumble on the only person that I would ever trust, and it was my eldest daughter.
Right.
Who actually has all the skills that I'm looking for.
Right. Okay.
And has got agreement that she can help me on an ad hoc basis while she's furloughed. And honest to goodness, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, because once I realized that I could move forward, I was 5 years ahead in my brain.
Yeah, that's good.
So just having maybe a couple of days help here and there actually can propel you so much further, that I was just like, I can't tell you how excited I am.
That's brilliant. I think what it does as well, it helps the headspace, doesn't it? So if you got a goal that you're aiming towards, a target, and you're not put off, you're not distracted by probably 2 or 3 other things that you can do, but there's a trust element there. It has to be done right. That getting that sorted, that makes sense. It sort of frees you up, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, to know that you haven't got to manage as well, that that you can give instruction and know that it'll just be done, and the only questions are going to be simple questions, and there won't be any floundering.
That's good.
Because they're not sure whether to ask, or whether it's because they start to second guess, or so in actual fact it'll put us into a position where everything's set up, if you like, that once she's back and settled into her own routine, it's a simple handover process. I haven't got to start from scratch again, because it'll all be there. The foundations will be there.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Here's a question for you, though. Let's say you didn't have your daughter, but this had to be done. What selection process do you think you would have gone through so you could have
I'd have just worked weekends. I had the weekend off. I was just like,
really?
Yeah, seriously. Wow. I would have just carried on working earlier in the morning, later at night, and I'd have worked at weekends, because it was like one of those things that around everything else, it's the hours I need to find to get the job done to get me to where I need to be. So
Okay. Yeah.
but I'd be open-minded enough to be on the lookout for somebody to fit that bill as soon as, you know.
But that makes sense, doesn't it? And also, I mean, for me, trust is a bit like certainty, isn't it? When you're absolutely certain with someone, their actions, their values, and what they can bring to the party, then that's where the trust begins to become more apparent. And you're right. Yeah, I mean, what business out there doesn't sort of move along without sometimes taking a bit of a risk? I mean, when you're employing people, that the risk goes both ways, really. I know that legislation-wise, it falls heavily on the employee more than the employer. However, getting that right, I reckon, is part of the pact of being a leader, isn't it? The ability to stand back.
And I think in today's world, for what I've seen, people are perhaps more open to not employing somebody and taking on a contractor to do a job.
Yes.
Because it is a recipe for, could potentially be a recipe for disaster if you don't get the legislation right. So let somebody else look after their own, if you like, and know that they do a good job in what it is that they do. You get into the realms of are you going to be employing them solely for 6 months or more, and are they going to work for anybody else? That's the caveat, isn't it? You know?
It is, yeah. It is. It can be a tough one as well for, especially, well, all businesses, but small businesses in particular, because everyone matters, don't they, in the team? You know, everyone's carrying an investment that the business is making, and so they're looking over for a return on it. You know, it always makes me smile. You know, when people come in and maybe they've had a heavy night and a hungover and they can't get started work till 11 o'clock, I'm thinking, well, you better take a 2-hour pay cut then. Because the deal is you start at 9, you finish at 4, for example. And yet, imagine being in that position as an employer saying, no, I'm not having it. I mean, I know that there's some employers actually telling their staff, yeah, if you do have a hangover, don't worry about it, coming a bit late, would sooner you'd be more, you know, functioning. And I think, well, that's fine, but that creates learned behaviour. I think you've got to manage that so tight. I mean, I can,
As a supplier, you would only bill for what you actually do.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so true. And you know, your clients looking for a return on that, aren't they? Every time. Yeah. Not all. Well, we'll give Wendy a couple of days, maybe Lou. Every single time, they're looking for that. And I think that's what makes people successful, is the people that can deliver that again and again and again. And if it doesn't go to plan, how they then can recover from that and still make sure that everyone feels like they're winning. Because life isn't always easy. Conflict will happen, and trying to avoid it is a recipe for disaster. Interestingly, what's popped into my mind, because it always does on these ways, doesn't it?
It's the working
client it's a client that I did loads of work with. Now, unfortunately and sadly, he's now passed away. I won't mention his name or his company, but what I can say is that I remember being in the meeting with him a number of years ago now, and he needed to bring some more people in to his team. And I said to him, you know, your team could do with being a bit more youthful. And he just looked at me straight in the eyes. He said, if I take someone on, now this might shock a lot of viewers, by the way, of child rearing ability, I'll get no help or no support, and it'll screw my business up. So I'm not doing it. I'd sooner have the maturer person work in my office, knowing that they're going to turn up on time, they won't mess me about, and they'll be happy. I remember sitting there thinking, oh, I don't think that's politically correct. So this was years ago. Didn't say anything at the time, but that was his way of dealing with it. And I know there's a lot of businesses do things that, even though it doesn't appear to be politically correct and it's not right, you know, the realism of the fact is that sometimes people have to make really hard and tough decisions. And they have to do what the politicians do. They have to be able to spin it so they can appear to be fair. And, you know, I think that's what upsets a lot of people. Because what they don't realize is that that's just the way life is, that it's not this pure, perfect, equal playing field. Never has been, and it never will be. And yet, I think what you and I can do as professionals, we can do our very best to make sure we make it that way. But awareness for me is so important, because when you are aware that people will do things underhanded, that they will do things that might not be correct, because that's the way people are. How do you deal with that, Wendy?
Oh, it's an interesting one.
Hey, let's get some contention going, because I see a lot of people put comments down below, which is brilliant, and I know that doing this together has been a lot of fun. But when I only see 10 views on YouTube of the video, and when I know there's more than 10 people saying, I'm going to come back and listen to this later on, I don't think they're telling the truth. I don't think they are doing it. All right. And I'm calling you out right now. Do not say,
No.
I'll look at it later. Either look at
well,
it,
you see, it's different. It's different now, because you can view the video without being taken off to YouTube. When you're on LinkedIn, you don't get automatically taken over to YouTube to
Really?
register a view. So that's one thing. But
so you have to forgive me then if you do that.
Yeah. We'll just clock up the counts on LinkedIn. But I don't worry about metrics like that. But going back to my view.
Yes.
Interestingly, about 20 years ago, I was in charge. I was a part-timer in a comms company, and there was me and another lady part-time ringing round, booking appointments for the salesman to go and look at their phone systems, right?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I didn't want to be any more than part-time, but we did well, and I was given the job of finding other people to come and join me and build a team. So in the end, there were 6 of us, and they were all part-time mums working school time, term time, and earning money. Now, they all came from different walks of life. One of them had only ever driven a forklift in a warehouse.
Wow.
One of them had worked in a law practice and had got qualifications up to a hilt. But the compromise for them was that they'd come out of work, had their family, and now couldn't afford to go back full time in the industry that they wanted because of childcare costs. And the guilt of not being a present mum.
That must be horrible.
Yeah, it is terrible, which was why I was part-time at the time. So I was seeing it through their eyes, because it was exactly what I wanted for my family, was to be able to collect them at the school gate and spend time with them and cater for that, because that's another job, isn't it, that women have. So I kind of understand.
It is, but I will butt in. I did that a lot for a number of years on purpose. So I got that the beauty and the opportunity to take my daughter to school and back again.
Yeah, it's important for both parents to be that involved. But the reality is that there's not many dads that have done what you've done. They would like to, but how many of them are brave enough to go to their employer and say, look, I want to change my hours a little bit because I want to be able to go and pick up my kids from school? When the employer will go, well,
I would say
where's your wife?
Not many.
Where's your wife?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yes, exactly. And this is exactly what we've just been speaking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the hidden inequality. Yeah, and the pressures put on. It could be same-sex partners, couldn't it, as well, with children? So which one takes the father or the mother role? Because that can happen within families. I know it can. The interesting thing is when I started running my own business from home, so it was up to me. I could easily, and I've known fathers do this. I could easily have said, "Oh, I'm too busy." I could easily have made all those excuses. I still think that it's a good point. I still think there are times when you can make decisions and you can be quite brave about it, or maybe just take a little bit of extra holiday if you want to see a school play, or if you want to see them perform at sports, or at least be willing to do something. Yeah, because they'll remember that.
Yeah,
And also, I think if you're interested in it, some parents aren't interested in their kids, and this is a tough one. They're more interested in themselves, so they sort by themselves first and others second. So anyone who knows about NLP will know about that particular criteria. And if someone sorts by themselves, then no, they'll always make their choice first.
But do you think as much as anything as well, that it's kind of a conversation that needs to be had, that's part of the culture of the company?
Yes.
And you know, when you're interviewing and you would ask if they've got a family, that's at the point that you ask the question of the employer. I want to be able to go to the Christmas play. I want to be able to go to sports day. I want to, you know, these are important milestones for my children that I need to be present for. Is that going to be a problem? And the answer should be
that's true.
No, it's not.
No, although I've worked with years ago, I remember working with one particular sales manager, Paul, and he was absolutely spot on with that. And that was in a field where it was business machines, sales, were quite a sort of tough environment. But with every salesperson on his team, he knew exactly about their family, what was important to them. He knew the partner or their wife, and there was no women working in the team. Well, it would have been their husband. You could just tell by the guy. And on purpose, all the targets were always set in alignment, normally, with what the wife wanted at home. It was quite funny. And he made sure that he sat down with everyone. You know how people have these appraisal meetings, don't they?
Yeah.
So his type of appraisal meeting was, okay, so he's got all the figures, get that out of the way. Right, how's the family going? Anything that's getting in the way? Is there anything coming up in the next 3 months that we need to plan together to make sure you don't miss out? And I can remember as clear as the day, sitting there thinking, wow, completely different. And we're talking, mid-90s. So not something new, you know, it's not the 21st century, but it's common sense. Absolutely common sense. The gentleman that I spoke about has now passed away. Interestingly, he would always make sure that the health and wealth of his staff were at the upper part of his mind, and he would do similar things in a stranger sort of way. Interestingly, he always gave them their birthday off, unless it was at the weekend, then they missed out. I said, give them a day off during the week. No, of course.
Don't make it a bank holiday. No, it's not a bank holiday.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah,
then,
so funny.
But then the other scale to that is that if you don't feel that you can approach your employer, then what you do is you end up being deceitful, because you would book something else out and hide the fact that you're at sports day. You wouldn't answer your phone. You know, you'd be unavailable because you're in a meeting, and that meeting is you know, cheering the egg and spoon race. So you know.
Just hoping the phone doesn't ring. Yeah, it's far better to be straightforward and honest and open, isn't it? Because it actually just relieves a lot of stress. If you're having to manipulate your appointment schedule so you can attend those events, then in reality that says an awful lot maybe about the way the company does their business as well, and maybe the way they deal with their team as they deal with customers.
Or the fact that they don't deal with it at all.
True.
That they don't see that it's a problem because they've never had the conversation, and all these preconceived, you know, notions of past companies or other ways of working. It's baggage that comes with you, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you bring on a new team member, it's not just them, is it? It's everything behind them that you've got to take into consideration, I imagine, if you're wise enough. Definitely, because that's the mix. Definitely.
I see in the news now that the 1st of August it's down to employers whether it's safe for their staff to come back. So I've been working with a client who does sanitisation solutions, and of course the important message there is now's the time to be talking to us then, so that you, when you're talking to your employees, can say we've done everything we can to make it safe for you by cleaning down in these different places. So equally the conversation about returning to work is what's changed while you've been away.
Yes, true.
You know, you've changed, we've changed, we've got lots of different priorities now.
Yes.
Let's make sure we're all on the same page, because I bet you, and I'd love to hear from people, because you and I, you know, we work in our own little bubble. and we talk to our clients, but perhaps we wouldn't get to hear this. Do you just turn up and go back to your desk and carry on as usual? Or is there some kind of welcome back? Here's what's happened. Here's where we are now. Here's what we'd like to happen next. I would like to hear from people.
Yes, you will get that from the most organized, people-focused businesses, without any doubt at all. Target-focused businesses, I doubt it very much, in as much as you're just going to have to pick it up as you go along. So depending on the culture and the way they treat people will depend on what happens. And that is going to lead to an awful lot of challenges, I believe, stress-related and health-related for people on their return. And also you've got that, if you think about those on furlough, if you return back and you're one of the last people, there might be, well, how come I wasn't selected first? And then for those that have been there all the time in some businesses, it might be, well, how come I wasn't furloughed? So there's going to be those hidden tensions there, I imagine, that, yeah, if you manage them well, and for a lot of businesses they do it very well. It's about having those conversations, isn't it, Wendy?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for companies to make the change, make the difference. Yes. And start afresh.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Embrace it.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is that people leave. And the worst thing that could happen is they make people redundant. So there are worse things that can happen within businesses. There's thousands sadly been made unemployed. But then the flip side of that, and it's always the case, because as Spinoza said, no matter how thin you slice something, there's always two sides to it. Yeah. So on the flip side, there are businesses that are going up and up and up, that are expanding, are changing. And I think it's the ones that are flexible enough to take in the changes and adapt to what's going on. I think it's going to be a journey like no one's been on for a long time. Next probably 6 to 12 months, it's going to be really fast. It's going to be changeable. I mean, the government said they want everyone back for Christmas. I love that, because it's an illusion about an illusion, isn't it? Yeah. Can you believe we build an economy on the biggest lie we ever tell anyone in the big wide world, and it's all make-believe? Yeah.
Have you been good or have you been naughty this year?
I know, and people have serious conversations in the boardroom about business at Christmas, and no one's brave enough to say, excuse me, but it's all made up. It's crazy. But I don't know, maybe it's not. I mean, maybe the fantastic company called Coca-Cola just had this brainwave to change Santa Claus uniform from green and white to red and white. I mean, where did that come from?
I think we missed the real message, which is,
what's that?
Well, the birth of Christ, isn't it? So,
well, you're not quite sure, really, are they? In all fairness,
is it that we don't believe that? So we've just made something seriously fantastical because we can't prove the original story.
And that's what it is. It's interesting because it's like all stories. If you delve a little bit deeper, the story has parallels that go throughout the ages. And we're talking massive parallels. And so what I often see there is, this is quite an interesting sort of deviation in our conversation, is the power of storytelling. And, that story has been kept alive for over 2,000 years. And that's amazing. Pure amazing that a story can do that, and all the other stories as well that are kept alive from that.
Interestingly, going back to the start of the conversation where we said about time.
Yeah. Oh yes.
You're saying that it's been kept alive for 2,000 years, which is really where somebody decided that was where time starts. Year one, year naught, year one. When we
That's true,
know that there is millennia of years before that.
Correct, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just that story. I mean, there's probably 10,000 years of someone else's story as well, going all the way back, and even further back. And I suppose part of me thinks, isn't it a shame they didn't have technology to drop it on a USB drive in the desert, drop it down into a great big vault next to Tutankhamun, so that we could pop it into our hard drive and go, so that's what happened.
or you know, be that fly on the wall that is watching the cavemen painting mammoth and fires and stickmen with spears.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. It's like, wow. And for me, here's another question: why is it that, I don't know, 200-300 years ago, they couldn't really paint people very well? Yeah, you know, they couldn't really get. Maybe it's their instruments of
Are they
art,
using
but
this? That was their paintbrush.
what they figure. Oh yeah, no, that's the caveman. Listen, no, with caveman and cavewoman, we don't know. It could have been the woman that got bored in the cave. You know, he's out there trying to kill the mammoth,
Yeah,
and
if
she's
you read John M.
she's salivating, so
Cave,
she's drawing on the wall. Right, this is what you know what it was, don't you, Wendy? Yeah, it was his shopping list.
it was winter.
It was the winter of our discontent, as they say in Shakespeare. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder who was doing the paintings. Why did they do it?
Well,
What motive?
Clan
Yeah,
of the
why?
Cape Bear is one of my favourite stories that I've ever read, that by John M. And it talks about Ayla, who is, you know, different to the
Yeah,
other clan members, and it's just fascinating because it talks about, you know, plants and herbs and animals and natural resources. It's all about natural resources and what we can use to
yeah,
help ourselves and feel better, and you know, the stories that they tell one another, and conceptual belief that they have about a different clan, and it's just fascinating that the thread of people and storytelling, it just goes back and back and back
yes,
and back, like forever. It's just wonderful, I think, that somebody would conjure those words to build the story so that we can imagine ourselves there. You know, that's the equivalent,
absolutely, yeah,
isn't it? Or, you know, come on, let's
yeah,
get closer to time travel.
yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. We might be disappointed. It's interesting because we will be viewing that world based on our critical factor, on our filter, wouldn't we? On the filter that we see the world. So going back in time with our own filters, I'm just wondering, because we might have made it bigger than it was. The dinosaurs may not be. Well, yeah, they would be that big. It's got the bones, haven't they? So I can't argue on that one. But yeah, just perspective, really. Interesting.
And would we want to go forward when it's not been mapped already? If you believe what people say is that you know, you have a choice today, the choice today will affect your future. So if all the
Yeah,
choices were just, if we were all just put on pause and you went forward, and then an hour later, would it still be the same? Well, this, you know, I find that fascinating.
yeah, that's right. Well, Tony Robbins uses the Scrooge analogy when he talks about the choices we make in life.
Oh,
You actually take a pathway.
back to
Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah. I know. I know.
Only one.
But right, that's a good point as well. For those that, you know, might be rather sensitive around certain issues like religion, etc. When I say it's all made up, what I was really talking about was Santa Claus and Father Christmas. Historically,
Commercialism
yeah,
around it.
from yeah, you know, it is, isn't it? If you think about it, you know, commercialism's really rode on the back, and it does on all religious celebrations, as you can see, from around the world. So I suppose there's nothing wrong in that, really. It comes from the trade and the ability to do business. I imagine thousands of years ago in the bazaars that were set up. It's just the way trade was carried out. In fact, I remember reading a book called The Prince. Oh, that is really a deep thinking book. And it talks about, you know, during the battles or during the conflicts, there would be little bazaars and stalls set up so traders could trade.
Gary, the Prince.
What's that, sorry?
Who's that
The
by?
Prince. Oh, that's Machiavellian. So have you ever heard of Machiavellian thinking?
I have.
Yeah, so it was a guy called Machiavelli, an Italian, going back, I think, around probably the 15th, 16th century. He was sort of documenting at the time what was happening with the different different levels of society at that time, like the rulers and the ruling society, and it's quite interesting. Yeah, really a good deep read. I like to do that sometimes. I've really good sort of throw myself into something that's going to stretch the brain.
I look that up because I
Yeah, you see the parallels now. You see the parallels exactly now. It's just that what we have now that they didn't have then was this, what you and I've got. You know, this is like our own sort of studio, isn't it? Our own little TV channel that you and I can talk about. 10 years ago, we probably thought this was not capable of doing. So I think that the acceleration of information is interesting, but the rules still apply, and that's quite interesting. Yeah. You don't have to look at the news and the way it's presented. This is something I was told to do years ago, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll do that. Look at the news from our perspective, and then pop on to Al Jazeera and look at it from their perspective.
Oh yes, yeah.
Right? And the viewpoint, and I can remember it was a networking event. I remember chatting with a lady. She moved across from Russia, and I don't know whether there's a lot of truth in it, but it's what she said. She said, Gary, there's never any bad news on Russian TV. We don't have bad news, and smiled. I said, oh, okay. And there's perspective, isn't it? It's perspective. But I often will do that. I will look at how the news is reported from two complete different angles. So it's the same thing, but two completely different perspectives.
We
and
get
even
that.
then,
We get that with
even
BBC
then,
on ITV, Channel 4,
yes.
Channel 5. If you watch, I can sometimes watch about 2.5 hours of news and flip between
Yes.
channels and go, so that's different to what they've said, because it's the view that they want to convey.
And the viewers, they know what type of people, and that seems rather, it's not meant to be rude, but the type of person, their political beliefs, their leanings, etc., are watching. I always remember when we had a guy called Chris Dodson who came along to my GONG group, which was the Gary Outrageous Network group, and he did a presentation on PR, and he had a flip chart, and he put something like, if I get the figures right, like 2 million and then 200,000. He said, you know what these two represent? I wasn't too sure. He said, right, 2 million are the Sun readers per day, 200,000 are the Daily Telegraph. He then put two headlines up related to the same story. One was the Sun, one was the Daily Telegraph. And he said, this is what we have to contend with in the world of PR and the world of media, is to understand your audience and how to reach out to them. Yeah. So if you sell into Sun, oh, by the way, I was also told that the average reading age in the UK is 12. And regardless of if people have been to university or not. So if you are marketing, the best language level to stick at is something easy and simple to follow.
Oh, how sad.
It is what it is, as they say in certain trades. Yeah, that's the average. That doesn't mean that everyone's like that. And that's, for me, that's something that I came across probably about 20 odd years ago, and I've seen no change in that, none whatsoever.
So because I always like to do the flip side, so the best thing to do then is to ask your teenage kids their view on something that you're trying to explain.
Oh yes, a lot of companies will hire teenagers. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And again, going back over the years, a lot of wise companies have brought in like teenage working groups and said, okay, what do you think about this product? How do you think this will sell? Who do you think will buy it? What do you think? It's, get their viewpoint. Doesn't mean that's you're going to use all of it, but it just gives you a good grounding. Yeah, absolutely. I was always sort of taught that if you can't sort of simply explain something, it's too complicated. Who's going to buy it?
But then that's the same for me looking to try and produce the brochure, because all the different things that I am capable of doing within a single project, so complicated to explain to a potential customer.
Yes.
But in actual fact, it took 12 years, and I've ended up doing it in infographic style. So I've got little pictures that immediately conjure, and it just creates the picture. So whilst we're saying storytelling is important, you've also got to use other triggers to be able to create that story for you quickly. And it was the images that did it.
That's right. That's right. We saw that though in the computer age, though, didn't we? And you and I would have seen that development. I can remember having to use MS-DOS to run programs, to write auto-exact backfires. Yeah, you would have done that. Yeah. And then Bill Gates realized that people are far better influenced by little tiny symbols called icons.
Yeah.
So it's just one. I don't know whether it was him on his own or his team. So then I remember when that came out, it was like, wow, it made sense. Okay, apart from tapping the screen and it wasn't working, they said you had to use this thing called a mouse. This is a true story as well, because my background was technical support in Canada many years ago. And I had a call from someone saying, I'm using the mouse, Gary, and it was on the screen. And it's not working. But at the time, it's interesting. I came from a very black and white sort of background of yes and no's from technical. So when people ask me about issues, I'd say, no, you can't do it. No, that won't work. Straightforward, because I thought that was honesty was best policy. Until I was pulled to one side by a great manager called Mark. He said, right, Gary, we need to just have a chat. I said, why? He said, we've had a complaint about you. And I was shocked. What do you mean a complaint? He said, you keep telling people they can't do things. I said, yeah, but that's the answer, Mark. He said, no, you don't understand me. You must agree with them to begin with, and then you can come back with a no. I said, really? Yeah. So that was my first teaching. Great salesman, definitely. Was the general manager there. So you only got to high positions if you were successfully in selling. But just that one conversation, completely changed. Interesting. We were talking about, can one thing change the direction of your life? The answer is yes, of course it can. Would I want to change it? Well, probably not, because then that'll probably screw up everything in my life. Yeah. However, there's a book there, just for finish, because I spent 30 odd years as a psychotherapist, and what does a psychotherapist do? They want to look into someone's past to help them change their present for their future. And did you know that less than 30% of people that go through psychotherapy have a positive outcome? Which is why I moved away from that and moved into more positive psychology, which has measurable results that we know work. So interesting, eh? Interesting.
Well, it is, because it's the assumption that everybody knows what to do with something because we know how to do it. So like the lady with the mouse,
yes.
How is she going to know? And one of the things my pop always used to say is, you don't just say no, you can't do that, because it doesn't make any sense, does it?
True. Yeah.
Right?
Well, it did to me at the time, but I agree.
Yeah. Why can't you? So that's where you were shown how to, yes, agree and go, yes, well, yes, I'm not sure that will work if you carry on doing it that way. So it's about reprogramming people into the way that it does work, for them to see.
Let me check that out, and I'll get back to you, even though I know the answer.
Yeah.
That was a tough one. But it meant less complaints and happy customers. So it worked. The formula worked. Although I do remember, because it's interesting how things pop up like this. I remember I had to go into the valleys over in Wales, and there was a snowstorm brewing up. And the guys didn't particularly like me, in all fairness. I don't know why. Maybe I supported the wrong football team, because I just got that feeling. And I was asked to go and visit a customer. Snow was falling down, who had a problem with correction on her typewriter. The typewriter was not a current model, not one I'd been fully trained on. However, one of the other service technicians that I built a great relationship of had gone through a few of the problems they had, and it stuck in my mind. So I walked into this, it was a porter cabin, snow's falling down everywhere, and it was as if they were trying to set me up for failure. I could sense that one on this. So I just walked up to it, looked down, knew exactly what the problem was, asked the guy, have you got a screwdriver, please? Yes. So I altered the print head, and I said to the lady in the office at the time, you wouldn't happen to have any nail varnish, would you? Because I've run out of some. And smiled. She laughed. So of course. And she gave me this pot of red nail varnish, and I painted over the screws. So what had happened, the head had moved slightly out of alignment, and the locking fluid had broken. So you just moved it back into place. So I said to her, leave that now for the next hour. I'll show it working now, then let it set. And it worked a treat. Well, the journey back was one of great joy for me, but not for the technician, because he was about to tell the service manager I just beat him with a pot of nail varnish. And I challenge anyone on our viewers to come up with something. There's one. What have you used nail varnish for other than putting on your nails? There, that could be both men and women, because men like to put it on as well.
Yeah, fix the ladder in my tights.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
Got a ladder forming, and it would have just run, and it was just before a really big meeting, and the nail varnish around the hole just stopped it from laddering long enough for me to get out of the meeting, and just would.
I've used paper clips as cufflinks when I forgot them, and also if a button pops off to bring the shirt back into alignment. But never had to use nail varnish apart from fixing so. But when you said ladders, I thought a proper pair of ladders. I thought,
yeah,
was that a bucket?
That would have been impressive.
Very, very. Oh, here's something that's also popped in my mind, and it was part of the conversation that you were on about, people are expected to know everything. And I'll give a shout out to the guy. It's Jack Gaisford. I'd encourage anyone to check out his LinkedIn profile, because he's absolutely fantastic on the way he uses video to promote what he does. He's about 23 years of age. He's very, very smart, switched on, got a lot of connections going on. But he was really upset, and he did a lovely posting based on the fact that he contacted someone who he thought was his mentor, or could be a mentor, and after about 45 minutes it was going well, but the question that he asked was, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? And rather than say to him, sorry Jack, we just don't know, they went round the houses again, and he lost confidence in what they said. And his message was, it's okay to let people know you don't know.
It's better that if you don't know, because I think I was saying this last week to somebody, that we can't be experts in all things.
No, you're right, we can't.
Otherwise we would just be solitary beings in everything. We wouldn't have families, we wouldn't have relationships,
Yeah, that's true. And how do we feel about someone who knows it all as well? It's very hard. It can be very hard to have a conversation, can't it? Because it is about filling those gaps in. And like you said, it's about, can someone support? Can someone look at it from a different perspective?
It's when you get into a conversation with somebody, it's what my stepdad would call a camel trader.
All right. Yeah.
They've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, sold the business for millions, and you just think, how could you possibly have done well in all of these different things? It doesn't matter what you could be talking about, and oh yeah, they know, or they know somebody that has, and you're like, come on, be real.
Yeah, and they've got amazing communication skills as well, haven't they? Not.
I'm an expert in everything, Gary. I'll just put that out there now,
I'm very happy to say very quickly, no, I just don't know. I'm not too sure about that. And I suppose I learned that from the lesson of just not saying no straight away, but using questions, because I think questions are the answer many times. To stand back and just think, well, I'm not here to give a solution sometimes, just to try and find out something a bit different, or maybe the same thing but from a different perspective for a client.
I can give you a real quick example of not being in the right frame of mind to be able to solve a problem. And that was Friday. I needed to be able to share documents, folders and everything, and I know I've got the systems, but could I do it? No, I was too tired. And it didn't matter how hard I tried, I was going round and round in circles, I was getting very frustrated. Yet this morning I've come in and just gone, oh I know, blah 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 blah. Done. And so sometimes you've got to be in the right frame of mind to be able to take on that learning, whether it is for yourself or to listen to somebody else trying to help you.
That's right. And also frustration is a great motivator. That because you don't know the answer, the unconscious mind is now working on it for you. Whether you like it or not now, you've set the timer going. And so the response you had this morning possibly could be because in the background, your mind's been working on looking at all the different variables, and then click, right frame of mind, you got it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Noah St. John's quite an interesting character. I've spoken about him. He talks about affirmations. So a lot of people know what an affirmation is. That's with an I, but an affirmation with an O is the way you ask a question with the affirming statement. So, for example, one that I would share with a lot of people, it's a simple one if they're finding it difficult to fall back to sleep, would be this. As they're lying in bed, just ask this question over and over again. Why am I falling into a deep sleep now? And why do I now awaken at 9 a.m. in the morning, or whatever time they want to wake up? If you ask that question without trying to find the answer, and that's the key, your unconscious mind has to give you the answer. Yeah. Why am I now falling into a deep sleep now? Yeah. Yeah. Don't do it that way. All right. But it works a treat, because I remember the first time I tried it out, I had a busy day. My mum was a little bit restless, and I thought, oh yeah, that affirmation, I'm going to try it out now. So I'm lying there thinking, no, it's not working. And as I woke up smiling, I thought it worked. Because that's what sleep does, doesn't it? At what point do you remember falling asleep? Most people, they don't. And that's the power of the unconscious mind. When I realized that, I started using that in different areas, and also with salespeople, myself. Why am I now increasing my sales each and every day? Yeah, why am I increasing my sales by 20% or more each and every day? Why wouldn't I use something like that? If you think about it, there's the next question. So the unconscious mind will help me. For me, the unconscious mind is that deep, dark soil that we plant seeds in, and the soil has to have certain nutrients and water. That's what the mind has effectively. But when we put the seeds of suggestions in, if we don't disturb the soil, they just grow, don't they? As long as there's a lot of nutrients there. The only time it won't grow if you start disturbing it. So if you start on the pathway of setting your mind to work for you, and then you try and figure everything out, you're stopping it from nurturing itself. There you are. That's profound.
Dun, dun, dun.
Confucius says, your mind is a plant pot. And there's going to be someone, I know there's going to be someone respond by going, yeah, I always say that. And I have it so many times. I've had it so many times when I've been presenting, and someone comes up to me and goes, do you know what? I'm just like you. I do exactly what you do. I'm going, oh. Okay, would you want me to let you down gently, or do you want me to be bluntly honest with you right now? And they look at me a bit confused. I go, well, you're not like me then, are you? So, I said, I don't want you to be like me. It'd be horrible. You'll have all these deep, dark, disgusting, terrible thoughts about life. I don't really, but it's nice to say that.
It's just outrageous.
It is, isn't it? It is, yeah. I haven't had anyone copy that yet. And I say yeah, but you know, I was reflecting on, I was doing some marketing for a client the other day, and I can remember we used a phrase called free screening. And it was in our adverts when we were promoting the services for the clinic in Bedford. I always remember it very well. And rather than free initial consultation, because the initial consultation is what you have with professionals like solicitors, accountants. And as a therapist or as a coach, for example, you don't want to look like that.
Well, it's not just that. An initial consultation to me makes me think, oh, well, they want to draw everything out, and then I can't say no to them.
Good one, yes. Good one, yeah. Yeah, where screening is very medical, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So it worked a treat, at least 8 months. And we used to take full-page adverts out in the local paper as well. So this wasn't small adverts. This was gigantic. Always reminding myself, if you really want to dominate the marketplace, you have to dominate it. Not with a piddly advert that big. Yeah, a full page, regular. And we did. We dominated the marketplace for quite some time. Lo and behold, the chiropractor, the other end of town, free screening sessions, because they've been watching.
Yeah. But
and they do.
Equally, though, what you're saying is that these adverts this big against these adverts this big is that I value what I do, and I'm telling you how good it is.
Oh, massively. And interestingly, the return on investment increased probably fivefold the bigger the advert got. However, it wasn't. It's interesting because I was taught marketing because I worked for a company, commission only, folks, only. All right, that's throwing yourself in it for 12 months to learn how to market in the direct response field. And so I was taught to write editorial style advertorials. And for about 2 years, I got away with not putting this as an advertisement at the top of the page until the newspaper, I think, had a change of legal team. So we popped it at the bottom, 6-point text, by the way. That did affect the business. I measured it. But if you do it, I don't know if you know what I mean. You probably know what I mean. Editorial. It's got to look like the articles in the newspaper. And where possible, a newspaper, I know it's all changing now, newspapers wouldn't give you the font style normally or the way they lay it out. So you've got to do a bit of homework. However, if you can almost copy, so when the client turns the page over, well, your story is like every other story in the newspaper. So as long as the headline grabs their attention, so lead by headline, then by the content, and then by a call for action. And I think for anyone in marketing, that's as simple as you're going to get. Check your headline, make sure your content is all about the reader, then have a strong call to action. Not much else you can you put on that one, really, is there?
No, and I think it's the same as any sort of form. Things come in and out of fashion, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. I reckon web pages, same thing.
Zoom is very fashionable at the moment. Yeah,
it is.
Utterings are, when you're on Zoom, really don't like it that much. You know, it's serving a purpose, but gosh, we all like to get back to having phone calls and not being quite so visible. People are not comfortable, I don't think, with being quite so visible.
Interesting. No, I'm quite happy with it. Maybe it's my character.
Yeah, I don't mind it, although I have to say it does take me quite a lot longer to get things done, because when I'm on the phone, you can't see me checking my email.
Yes.
You can't see me checking posts on my social media.
Switch the video off and say I've got a problem with my camera.
Yeah, it's interesting that because it will have an impact on people's way of working, because you've got to be so focused.
Yes.
And here in
spot on. Yeah. Wherever you are, be there.
Yes.
Totally and utterly true. Yeah, it does focus the attention. I agree with you on that. I do like making calls as well. Forever got my headset on if I'm making telephone calls. We spoke about this in the past. I find it very comfortable, easy to work with. And I think that anything you do in business and in life, if you find that there's an easier way to get the results and it feels more comfortable, then, unless you're a masochist, I think that's probably the best way forward.
Yeah. Well, we all like the easy route, don't we?
We do actually. It's true. Yeah. I've had people argue on that one, but like straight line, because the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line, isn't it?
But it sometimes can be the easiest route, and you're not necessarily measuring against a past practice.
Yes.
I find
that's true.
When people stick behind email, for example, they may still be forging relationships and getting business from it.
Yes.
But nowhere near as much as if they'd have been having the conversation on the phone.
No, that's true. That's true.
And
would you say like a combination? So, like we're doing Zoom. I mean, this is like a Zoom show, isn't it? So a Zoom call can go on for an hour, a consultation. But like if you're combining your video with your telephone, your email, your posts, so it sort of builds a picture up for everyone. And also in the different ways that people like to take information in. Some people don't like to watch videos, they like to listen, and or they like to read. But I think if you can combine as much as you can, it just gives you a fighting chance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. At some point, we've got to be able to create the noise in the silence and to be heard, haven't we? That's
I think one of the books that inspired me to focus on it was called Just One Thing or One Thing, and it's all about just having one main concept that you focus on, and maybe within your business. So if you specialize in one thing,
the
power of one. And the way the author demonstrated it was with the domino, the way you could tip it forward onto something slightly bigger than the domino. And after about 5 tips, you could tip over a tombstone, but it all started with a domino. And it was just that one thing, that one action. Yeah. And that's stuck in my mind. In fact, what a show today. What keeps popping in my mind is so many different things, but I was interviewed by a guy called Douglas Maddie. He's known as the wedding magician, and he's known as that. He can do magical tricks for everyone, but he said as soon as he became the wedding magician, his business went through the ceiling. He said, and I only do 3 or 4 tricks, and that's it. But he encouraged me to read that book.
Is that repeating those tricks to as many people and as many new people as you possibly can.
Yes.
In lots of ways, and you've just made me think of another thing where lots of people in market who are looking to market their business want to be perceived like the influencers that are global, don't they? They attain to be like the big fish in the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, in business, we've got little geographical pockets with enough customers for all of us, each of us. We
absolutely.
Seriously be a big fish in that little pool.
Yeah.
And people forget that. And yes, I agree with having aspiration, but if you can't service your local community, business or otherwise, first.
Yeah, well, it's Acres of Diamonds again, isn't it? The story of Acres and Diamonds is an old story. That sometimes the jewels are right on your doorstep, right in front of your face, and it could be too close, people can't see it. But I totally agree with that, absolutely. And also, all big fish started as little tiddler, didn't they?
Yeah. Everything starts somewhere, doesn't it? You know, people say, "Oh,
you can't become a big fish straight away. You just can't. Don't happen. It's against the nature of life."
Oh, you risk so much if you were to think of, you know, the 11-stone weakling wanting to become the bodybuilder. You know, the shortcuts to get there are very dangerous, aren't they?
Yeah.
And no guarantees. So, you know, slow and sure all the way.
Yeah, blood, sweat and tears to get there, definitely. And even then, you might not get it. The amount of times that when people are interviewed, so like when like Olympic champions or world champions or people that have created maybe tangible success in their life that you and I might recognize, when they're asked, they'd always talk about, well, I had the dream and I worked very hard. And yet there are thousands of people that have a dream and work very hard and never get there. And that's just down to all sorts of things occurring on that journey. It's not just that one thing that I think that people often think it's going to be. It can be the one thing, like the one thing strategy of propelling you so you know where you want to be. I think it's having the ability to be flexible, or to consider, well, how many clients do I really need to have an amazing life, rather than trying to get everything, just focus down, just niche in. Yeah, and be the go-to person. Yeah, totally funneled in.
There's a new film on one of the streaming services. There's lots of them these days.
Yeah.
It's called Sprinter, and it's where Usain Bolt actually makes, I think, his cameo debut.
All right.
And it's a Jamaican boy who's not really got any aspiration to be successful. And you see him, and he never wins a race. You see him, and he's like that, and then the last 50 meters he can't do. So his 400-meter race, his coach is saying to him, "You need to do the 200," and he's like, "No, the 400's my race. I'm gonna," and it's because his brother had been the successful. The elder brother, successful in the 400, he wanted to be like his brother. And his coach went, "You're not your brother. Do this 200-meter race for me. Don't muck it up." And he won. And it was when he won, he realised what the coach was saying.
I know.
Be you, follow what is best for you, ask the questions for yourself.
That's right. And that's where a coach can often come in, looking from the outside in, and maybe see what is so obvious where other people just can't see it. Either blinded by, like you said, this particular sprinter wants to be like his brother, rather than, okay, what are your talents?
And if you
focus on them.
If you don't necessarily trust in coaches and mentors, because that's completely different conversation, talk to the experts in the field that you've got a question about, because they're effectively coaches in their own right, because it's their expertise. Right. But talk to as many people as you can, you know, from different walks of life and different backgrounds. You know, if you're part of a networking group, ask your networking group the question. They will support you in lots of different opinions for you to get to the bottom of working through what it is that you could be doing.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are entitled to ask that question if you've put the time in to help others as well within that group. If you're the person who's active within the group, then I've found that when there is a time when you need to ask a question, and I've done that many times, that you get some really good feedback. You often get feedback you hadn't even thought about.
Well, and often there's people that will say, God, Wendy, I'm so glad you asked that. I've been thinking the same thing.
Yes,
people
that's right.
Have the same problems.
They do. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We do. In business and in life, there's not many problems that can be too different, is there, out there, really? But yeah, I agree with you on that. And the simple question, it's interesting that we've coming around to finishing it all off, that the word trust came out again.
Yes. So it's all about making those conversations count, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Keep
definitely.
The conversation going, whatever's on your mind, get it out there.
Yeah. Be prepared to ask, be prepared to become vulnerable. If you want to grow, if you want to develop. The only thing that stops people back is fear. It's the fear of failure for me is, again, it's my old favorite, is social anxiety. It's the fear and worry at what other people might think about you. Not what they do think about you. It's the fear, as all phobias are the fear of the fear. So I think, maybe our phobia busting session for business owners could be one we do at another day.
But if it is your dream, then you've got to trust in your dream, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. The sport analogy rings true to me. I can remember as a youngster going judo, wanting to be a black belt. That was it, big aim. 11 years later, achieving it. 2 years prior to that, taking ages and ages and ages to get to the level where I could actually compete for the black belt. I was losing more than winning every time I'd go in for a grading, and I trained hard. I worked hard. Would do 4 or 5 mile runs with a backpack on through the snow. My judo coach was an ex-Olympic coach. He literally just drilled me again and again and again. And it doesn't say you reflect back when you actually achieve. You think, it was, if I hadn't have gone through all those losses, which I didn't want to do, but I wouldn't have thought that the belt was as valuable as it was. You see, Wendy, I could actually buy a black belt for about £3.50 and put it around my waist. It's not difficult, is it?
No, that's not.
No. But when you've achieved anything and you put that, whatever that belt is, around your waist, then that for me is it's the symbol, it's the icon. You can look down and think, In fact, my first belt looks a bit grey now because it got washed a few times, but you shouldn't do with belts. And I had a great friend who actually hand embroidered it for me as well, with my name on in Japanese. So happy memories. Apart from all the injuries and the pain that you suffer, but that's part of it, I guess.
That's the journey. Yeah.
It is. Wow.
Fantastic.
So this has been an extra long edition today, session 6, which is lovely.
We've had a lot on our mind.
We have the waves of the mind, Dave. Awesome.
But always happy to hear from everybody on what their comments are as well. So.
Please do, yeah. And I will be checking the views, Wendy. I will. Bound to.